Shall we get things started on the Analytical Boys show tonight?
Yeah.
All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Analytical Fanboys. This is the Modular Media podcast where once a month we pick a media thing that we like, and we make all the other guys in the group check it out, and then we discuss it like it's a book club, but it can be about any kind of media. I am one of your hosts, the Backhuminator. Joining me this month is the normal crew. All the boys are here, so let's go with boy number one, Boingo Rider.
Hello, I am the boy number one, I guess, right now. Sweet.
Mm-hmm. And then we have the special boy of the month, Snowcone83.
That's Snowcone80 me.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
And we have the boy who's not always a boy, True Buster.
You guys like Muppets from Space?
I haven't seen it.
It's
I do.
okay.
It was really good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
When did that come out?
It was one of
2000?
the last Muppet movies before they kind of did a hiatus.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if it was like an old movie or if it was like a new Disney thing.
No, it was like in 2000.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
like Sony produced.
See, I
So
didn't
what-
even like give Muppets a real look until the Disney The Muppets movie with that that dude from How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That guy's not a bad
anyways,
actor.
we're not talking about Muppets or How I Met Your Mother tonight. We're talking about an anime. An anime
Whoa.
selected by Snowcone. So, Snowcone, why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about this anime, what it is, why you like it, why you picked it, and just kind of general thoughts. And then we'll do some round robin, getting everybody else's general thoughts before we jump into some specific discussion.
Okay, well, I think this show for me has always been an easy way to get other people to see why just Mobile Suit in general can be interesting. And while most of the time it seems like it's like fighting robots, I feel like there's like almost a 50-50 split, maybe a little bit more than that, I don't know. As far as like actual story content, like these characters like evolving and stuff like that. And Gundam tends to be pretty consistent in like a lot of ways, and almost like every way it seems. Like they'll try new things thematically, but like almost with like Star Wars, for example, you'll have the tech and like the Magellan fighters and stuff like that, the stuff that just gets used in every single piece of media and things that you get used to seeing all the time, that even though they're like incredibly wacky and like weird to see now. Like they had in a couple scenes they had the weird like horizontal tank thing that just has people standing up in it, and they showed it in like two scenes, and just like the other vehicles, the troop transport stuff, all that stuff is like in canon and been there forever. But I don't know, I mean it's a very beautiful story for like something that seems to be the Vietnam story of the Universal Century canon.
You say Vietnam, but it's like it's Vietnam, it's Gulf War, it's the Korean War.
We should also say, because I don't think any of us have yet, the story is called Mobile Suit Gundam The 08th MS Team. It's an OVA that came out in the late 90s.
It's an OVA, but it's a 12 episode, like 30-minute long episode show.
Yeah, because I did look at production information. It's OVA, but really it was a 12-episode show that was produced in two 6-episode chunks, and they were like released as two DVD sets initially, and then when they were brought over to America, it was dubbed in the early 2000s, pretty much right after it finished coming out in Japan, by a company called Animes, and it's a pre-Funimation dub. It's good, and it was aired on TV. I think I can't find anywhere that says exactly where. I think this might have been a Toonami show, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it might be. I'm gonna look up.
I remember seeing like ad bumpers for it on Toonami.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I checked. It was a Toonami joint.
All right. Well, it very much feels like something that has the kind of vibes I associate with Toonami, of being like anime that is still very much anime, but is maybe a little classier than you expect from your typical anime.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's not really like many like degenerate tropes in this. It's very like, well, it's made by Sunrise, who also did Cowboy Bebop, like around which like these were made around the same time, and those have like very classy kind of like grand epic story, like that like anyone can get into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you say there's nothing really all that sleazy in it. There's one scene that's very much like what the oh, I forgot I was watching anime.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely from the 1995, and it's a little. Thankfully, it doesn't get too out of its own way with that shit. But
Mm-hmm. It's
yeah,
just
it is
like
good.
that one scene that's like, wow, if this was in any other medium at any other time, maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it kind of just feels like an old like 70s or 80s like war movie the whole time. And, like they'll have interesting themes like that, or like an old like western or something like that, and like the way that they do the voiceovers and stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, like,
I
the
mean,
Gundam enhances
that was the big kind of thing I was taken away with a lot of it, was just like, this feels very much like a classic, like a war comic, like Hogan's, like not Hogan's Heroes,
Sergeant Rock.
yeah, Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, like we've kind of like gotten away from the usual format of initially saying our thoughts. I should say, I really enjoyed this. I don't have a super lot of experience with Gundam. There's one other Gundam show I've seen all the way through, and that's because Chris made me watch it for this podcast, and I didn't super like that show. This one though, I thought was pretty good, and I was like, yeah, this is a solid story. It doesn't like exactly make me go like, oh, I want to watch a bunch more Gundam now, but I'm like, I enjoyed my time with this, and I wouldn't mind getting like some figures based off of the Gundams that specifically appear in this.
Yeah.
That's how it starts, though. That's how it starts.
Yeah, that's how it starts.
Yeah.
So my Gundam history is weird because I started with Victory Gundam. I haven't finished it yet, but I did start it, like 10 episodes in Victory Gundam, and then like I like it a lot. It's very classical, but like I like the themes it presents. But that's a whole other thing. And then I've been watching G-Witch, the current show at time of recording, week to week, and I'm like, oh, this is a really good show. And so this is like, okay, we're gonna do this for the podcast, and I really enjoyed this. It's probably the best Gundam thing I've seen so far. I think I might like have a bit more personal bias to G-Witch because I connect with a lot of the characters more there. But like in terms of production, this is my favorite Gundam thing I've seen so far. Like the animation, like the money is bleeding from every frame. It's amazing.
Because this was still made during bubble economy times, right?
98? No, that's post bubble.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's like OVA. It's the OVA
Well, that's
money.
the thing is like when it comes to the animation in the Gundam series, like over time they tend to like never really skimp out on shit. Like even when they started using like 3D or like CGI.
They use some CGI in here with the balloons and the testing.
Really? I did not notice it at all.
Yeah, same.
Like I could have swore that was a couple CGI models.
I'm not sure if they used it in this, but what I was talking about is like more modernly.
Yeah, I know.
Like with Gundam the Origin or anything like that. They'll only use it if they can guarantee that it still pulls off a spectacle. Like the detail with like every single series, it seems there's always something there to be seen if you're not paying attention to what's going on right in front of you. I mean, that's why I like the whole like franchise, just because of how serious it's always taken. I mean, not always like to the T, but like serious in the way of like they could have fun like with like Gundam Build Drivers or something like that, but they still put the money there. Like they think it's worth it, and it proves that it is. So
yeah.
But I mean, that's why we get these like beautiful shots and like this wonderful like jungle, the detail on like the mechs and stuff like that.
Yeah, like, and speaking of beauty in the show, I really like we were talking about this earlier, the atmosphere that the characters are in, like this middle war, like nearing the end. It's like I love the characterization atmosphere. The ending of the show, the end credit scene, is like the best example of this, where you just see the main character just vibing and everyone's kind of doing something in the background or kind of walking up to the camera. It's a magnificent, like, melancholy vibe, and I really enjoyed, like, that's probably, like, that describes the show. It's a melancholy vibe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely don't expect that happy ending from like other like branches in this media tree, because a lot of them really like to do the whole "we want to make you feel upset about stuff" thing. So
yeah, the thing I've always heard about Gundam, and I guess like confirm or deny, Cody, Gundam is very much a franchise that constantly goes, "War is hell. Would you like to buy some war toys?"
I don't know necessarily. I mean, it's not like, I don't think it was bred out of toy necessity or anything like that. And I mean, even with build drivers, I still don't feel like it was ever like they've ever been like that kind of blatant about it. Like, sure, like they make money off of it, but like they always do quality first. Because I mean, whenever the series first came out, there was nothing. It was just kind of like, yeah, this is it. This is what we want to do. Like,
yeah, like the original toy was like nothing. It was just, and then Bandai was like, "Hey, can we make model kits out of this?"
yeah, and then the model kit thing exploded, and like if it wasn't for Gundam, model kits probably wouldn't be where they were today or are today. There's like another like $1 billion franchise there in and of itself, separate of actual like Gundam. But I mean, that's the thing, I guess, is it's like any of the suits in this thing, like there's been so many model kits done so well for so long. You could probably find every single thing in every single part of this like series and be able to build it if you wanted to.
Yeah, like I was looking on Amazon, and I kind of glossed over the model kits, but Robot Spirits has just about every design from this show.
Oh yeah, they Robot Spirits just started kicking these off too. They had Easy 8 and a variation of the Ground Gundam for a little while, like for a while, like old design, but they just started doing 8th MS Team and the Robot Spirits anime line, which is like the screen accurate line.
Mm-hmm.
And this really lends itself to it. I've never gotten any of those figures because I know what'll happen if I try to, because I just like they're all good.
Yeah, I would kind of like to. Again, like I don't want to fall down the black hole, but there's a part of me that's like, what if I just got all the designs from 8th MS Team and Robot Spirits and called it a day? Could I actually do that?
You could probably do it, but I think some of them are premium Bandai. Like especially with like the Gundam anime line, they do reserve the premium Bandai for like some of like the weirder things. So it's like it's things that you might be able to take or leave. But I can't remember exactly where all the figures lie for that they've released for these.
Yeah.
I think we have like the second gen gun tank that we see like in the latter part of the show, but and I know that there's a add-on pack that has the hover tank thing that what's his name, Mikio
and Edmund.
Yeah, that they're in the sonar detecting thing. But yeah, anyways,
I think I saw actually. Yeah, here it is. There's a picture for the Zaku, the blue Zaku from the end of this show. In robots, the goof. Okay, specifically advertising that like, hey, it can do that pose where it gets up on top of the gun tank.
Nice. Yep. Oh, that's a very good design.
And that's the second generation gun tank that they released for this. Now, there's been a couple of that goof from 8th MS Team might be like the most popular thing to come out of it.
Yeah, it's a really good design
because it gets done a lot more, but like so does Easy 8 and the regular ground type Gundam. Because I know for like Robot Damashi, they showed off like the dust effects for like the ground type Gundam with the sniper propped up on the shield. And I think there's like a little effect part that lets you put the shield in it, so it could use it as a prop or a bipod essentially.
Yeah, and I mean, like that's another thing about this show. Just going on designs and stuff. I've often talked about how like I don't really like Gundams because of how like ornate and heroic a lot of them tend to look. I like the Xeon mecha quite a bit though, because of like how mean they tend to look. But a lot of the Gundams in this show, on the Federation side, like have a much more gritty, realistic military hardware feel to them than I've come to expect from like good guy Gundams.
Well, so that's that. Here's the thing with that. When we see like the ground types and the Easy Eights and stuff like that, this is essentially like after like the 1 year war, the 100-year war, whatever it was. Like the Gundam that you think of, the heroic ones, the main character suits, those are usually prototypes, and then after come like generic units. So
like,
when they first did the
mass-produced Gundam.
Yeah, when they first did the Gundam, they did the GM, and then then they started actually mass producing the Gundams, and that's when we started getting the ground type Gundams whenever they took the fight from space down to the actual planet Earth. Which is another interesting part of the story, because like you see these people who are the Earth Space Federation showing up to the planet that they're fighting for that they've never been to because they were born in a colony anyways.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story as well, because it's very much like, yeah, there's this larger war going on as a backdrop, and there are some rather big action set piece episodes. But for the most part, it's kind of this very human, down to earth story about just like a bunch of soldiers who are like, yeah, we're cogs in the machine, and we're just here trying to get our jobs done and stay alive.
Yeah.
Like you don't even get a hint for like the greater scope of what everything happened till you meet the kids in the final episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like I've heard that final episode's a bit controversial because it's like, oh, it could have ended at episode 11. But like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, no, you kind of need that final episode to like.
It gave me like almost a Kamen Rider story structure feel, like where there's an ending in episode 11 that's kind of ambiguous and is like, okay, here's the artsy ending we want to do with this story, but because this is still like a franchise and people are going to ask questions and want closure, here's the episode that kind of gives you closure.
Yeah, but even then, the closure episode is still really good. I think, like, it's very, it's more of the. I think it's like, I know you said episode 11's more artsy. I think this is a bit more artsy. Not gonna lie, with like how it doesn't even focus on the main characters until like the last 2 minutes. And just you focus on these side characters and like these kids they found. And I'm apparently looking at this last episode never aired in English. Apparently, until like at least on broadcast television.
Interesting.
So that, I guess they just thought, hey, episode 11 is a better, like, I don't know. So
I mean, entirely possible, but like this fucking dubcast like totally nailed it, and
oh yeah, the dubcast is really
the
good.
whole thing. Like there's a lot of people I've never heard of by name before, but then I went and looked into them, and I was like, oh, they did this and this. And there's also like some names doing like fairly minor roles. Like Darren Norris is a minor character in a couple episodes. Barbara Goodson and Robert Axelrod have bit parts.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, and the dubcast just like the direction is really like they really sell the vibe of like the melancholy, but like still we're trying to make the best of it kind of tone the show has. Shout out! Like, I really like Shiro's voice actor, the main character. He did a really good. I think that's the voice that stuck in my head.
He was voiced in the dub by Steve Staley, who has done like a bunch of. He's mostly an anime actor. He's most known for being Neji Hyuga in Naruto.
Oh.
Yeah, I watched both the sub and the dub.
He's one of the guys with like funky eyes.
He's isn't he like related to Hinata somehow? Like they're in the same clan?
Hinata's cousin. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Like I watched both sub and dub, and both are good visual audio experiences. Just pick whatever.
Yeah, like, and I should also say, like, again, going on the dub, I am typically a sub person. We've talked about that a lot of times on this channel, but like, as soon as I heard like, oh, this is an early 2000s dub, this is before the Funimation machine took over, yeah, I'll give this a shot, and I liked the dub so much that I watched the dub the whole way through, and even though I intended to loop back around and take a quick look at the sub for like an episode, I never got around to it.
Yeah. I just kind of just felt like in sessions, like I would do a dub session and then I would do a sub session of like episodes.
Also, this guy does have a couple of the guy who did Shiro does have a couple of Digimon roles, Boingo.
Oh, neat. Well, I mean that makes sense. Bandai.
Yeah, he was Koji in Frontier, and he was Ryo in Tamers.
Neat. But yeah, no, like there's a lot of just really interesting, cool stuff in this whole thing, and I think it being so down to the ground because I've seen some of 79 and the Gundam show that me and Back watched for the Analytical Fanboys 1.0 was Unicorn, which is much more heavy on the space opera part of Gundam than this is.
Yep.
Yeah, that feels pretty much like a. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Snowcone.
Oh, I was just saying, still in the same canon, by the way.
Oh,
yeah, no. Like this in Unicorn is like the first thing in the Universal Century, right? In terms of the 1 Year War, or
no, that's the original series Gundam, Mobile Suit Gundam. Unicorn is like after Char's counterattack and 8th MS team and 0083 and like a bunch of other things.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like the latest thing.
Besides the Canadian one.
I can't remember.
G-Savior?
One takes place.
I am going to...
Are you guys talking about G-Savior?
I should also mention, because you jogged my memory, Boingo, I have seen the compilation movies of the original series, and I remember thinking that, like, wow, this is the trimmed down version, and it's still kind of, like, boringly of its time.
I'm just looking at the timeline of Universal Century.
I mean, I like struggling back to the characters. Like, I like the episode where like the two kind of comic relief duo. They're just kind of like, let's go to town, and they kind of get screwed over about that.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of like, for as short as this show is, there's a lot of kind of like fun episode of the week moments.
Yeah, like they know how to, but they use their time economically well.
Like, it feels like this fully fleshed out. It feels like it could have been a 50-episode show, but it's only 12 episodes. And you have all these little subplots and, like, one-off episodes. And at the same time, it always feels like there's enough time given to what I guess is the main story of this kind of Romeo and Juliet plot.
Yeah. Also, that doesn't really even, like, that's, like, teased in episode 1, and then that doesn't really, like, until you hit the halfway point, that's when it becomes more of a focus.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting.
I think the point though is like the first half, besides the very first episode, is just to show like these are people. Like this is a very human Zeon that we see throughout this. We see they're just people more often than not. And sure, there's big evil assholes in Zeon, but there's just as many of those guys in the Federation near the end, and it's like. Yeah, no, that war is a dumb, pointless thing, and people who would fall in love easily in any other given situation must fight through heaven and hell in order to actually be together.
Yeah, it feels like a very realistic look at war, especially because there's also the third faction of the villagers who are just kind of caught in the middle of it and really only side with the Federation because they're just like, we're sick of the Zeon and you're going to get them out of here.
Yeah.
And they end up getting royally fucked over out of all of that.
Yeah, I can see why a lot of people say this is their favorite Gundam because of like the down-to-earth tone and like the distilled, like it's everything people love the ideals of Gundam for. Like, it is peak war is hell.
Mm-hmm. It's also just like I said, it's kind of a bit classier than you expect most anime to be in, like, what I've experienced with Gundam so far. Like, my experience with Gundam is big space opera, stereotypical anime sci-fi, and, like, seeing, like, bits and pieces of the very toy commercially ones, and... like, those are kind of the two out of the three big things I expect from anime, with the other thing being fan service. And while there is fan service in this, it doesn't feel like super out of place. It all feels like it has a place in the story, and the story itself is I hesitate to say sophisticated, but like smartly and competently done enough that you kind of forget that you're watching an anime because it's a different type of anime than we really get super often these days. It's again, like we said, it's up the same kind of ilk of like stuff like Cowboy Bebop, where it's a little more than you typically think of, and it can kind of sit on a higher pedestal. I imagine old takus really love this show.
Oh yeah, I know Bennett the Sage did a video on it. I didn't watch it, but like I was looking for reviews to like kind of like what do other people think, and like yeah, it's apparently a big fan favorite. So yeah.
Also, I have been just kind of surfing around looking at images, and yeah, Cody, they did make parts to do that whole sniper shot thing bipod.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also
That's
just
why-
like for promotional images, I love the desolated Gundam looks that like every promotional image of this show has. It's like that Gundam is fricked up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here's the thing. I think that's again because that's the beauty of just like having this one continuity. You see the big ace hero pilots. You see Amuro. You see those kind of people who are like driving the big shiny Gundams, and then you see these guys. These are the guys in the fucking muck getting dirty, getting shot at that you never pay attention to. But now it's just like, here's a giant spotlight on them.
Oh my god, Star Wars ripped this off of Rogue One.
Yeah. And it does. This one does have a very Star Warsy vibe to it than like other mobile suits do.
I guess I can see that with the space robot.
Yeah, just like with a little bit of how it presents some of the characters too, and like I don't know, some of the music notes would kind of like point me in that direction every now and then.
Yeah, that was the other thing. I love the music in this show.
Oh yeah. Like I already mentioned the ending theme, but the opening's pretty good too.
Yeah, and also just like the score is very, very classical and epic.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the good hint of that like contemporary city pop that was in a lot of anime at the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, gotta love it.
The fight scene that's set to the song the one guy sold.
Yeah. And like that's the other thing, is like you really get to understand these people as people, not just as like, oh, here they are as the soldiers, you know? It's like, no, this guy was a musician before the war started, and he wanted to do all that kind of stuff. This guy has a girl at home. This guy's dealing with PTSD. This woman had a husband. He's gone now. What happened there? We never know.
Yeah, and I mean, those are all kind of like tropey archetypes in military stories, but they all slot into this one so well that it just feels like very natural, down-to-earth characterization.
Like I really like the characters here. Like I have a hard time remembering the name, but I think that's just because I don't do names well. But I do love, like, I can recognize their personalities and designs really well.
I remember a good chunk of the names, but like the less important Federation guys kind of fade into my mind, like Song Guy. I don't remember his name. I don't remember PTSD guy's name. And
PTSD guy's a fucking bro, though.
Oh, he was like, he's great.
Yo, this guy who saved my life as a spy? Fuck no.
Eldor?
Oh, it's Terry. His name is Terry Sanders Jr.
Oh yeah, I liked him. He was pretty cool.
And his actor's name is Steve Kamer.
Not the most Gundam-y ass Gundam names, but hey, pretty solid.
I want to see what else is this guy done. Oh, this guy is like known for playing old men in anime dubs.
Speaking of old men in anime, fucking the one Xeon pilot who was piloting the Goof, who was just like the honorable dude who's just like, yo, I just want to look out for this brother and sister, and I can't do anything about it, but like I've like raised these kids essentially, and everything is falling apart for them, and your heart breaks for this guy.
Mm-hmm. Especially because it's like he doesn't even really seem to know that the brother's kind of a super fucker.
Yeah.
How did we feel about the romance?
I really liked it. Like there were maybe a few beats that felt like, okay, this is a little basic, just get you from point A to point B, but for the most part is really solidly done and convincing. There wasn't ever a moment where I was like, I don't know if I want these two to be together. I was like, no, very clearly this story is about these two finding a way to be together, and I'm down for that.
Yeah. And I think the first episode really does help that, because there is that initial conflict of like misunderstanding and not knowing each other, to make you understand that like, no, they can get along and all that kind of little bits and bobs, because there's not a super ton of time to develop the romance.
Yeah.
Holy shit! I've been scrolling through the roles page for the guy who voiced Terry PTSD Man. He's fucking Darkonda's voice actor from Power Rangers in Space.
Oh yeah, that like I was talking about it with you, where it's like, oh yeah, like there's a couple Power Rangers voice actors here, like Lex Lang. Like
goddamn, I miss Bandai era of fucking dubbing, because Bandai dubbed Cowboy Bebop. Well, a Bandai, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like they weren't a dubbing company, but like they were
the non-monopoly era.
That era where anime dubs were whatever voice actors we can get, rather than like these people who will always
these people who live in Austin, Texas. These people who live in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, fuck those people.
I mean, like there was like, if I may get into a voice actor rant, there was like the pandemic kind of brought like a lot of people that like wasn't from Texas like into anime voice acting, but then like they tried stopping that, and that led to the whole like Mob Psycho season 3 dubbing controversy with like that. Yeah, so it's like it's just a whole mess. And like, well, luckily some studios are still doing remotes. Like I know the Super Otakon studio are very much doing remote with their Ultraman Z dub, but like, I don't know. This just become the old anime dub episode of Analytical Fanboys.
Yeah, this has become the episode where it really comes out of like, I don't hate anime dubs, I just hate Funimation.
Yeah.
And even that, now they're bought by Crunchyroll, so like, stupid monopoly shit.
Because there was like a long period up until like the late 2000s where like most anime dubs were pretty good. Sure, some of them changed way too much, but a lot of them had like really good, competent, well-directed voice acting behind them. And now that's like a rarity for some reason, he says, looking in the general direction of Texas.
What? This has become the anti-Texas episode, man.
Well, I mean, it's just a problem with
industry.
With the industry and all that kind of stuff, and it's not just solely Texas being the problem. It's just Texas is where funny is at.
We're not Crunchy, because Funimation technically doesn't exist anymore. I don't know. Anime monopoly, or just monopolies in general, is a bad thing, and I don't like it.
And I like good voice acting.
One day there will be Modular Media anime dubbing.
Oh my god.
We can just start doing fandoms.
We're the people who finally get like official Western released Kamen Rider dubs to happen.
You know what? Let's put that on the table for like the next meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna bypass Team Rider. I'm gonna fly to Japan and go to Toei HQ and kick in the door.
We'll save that for next meeting. We don't want to make it too public right now.
Like, no, fucking we're recording right now.
Yeah.
Joking around. It's good
I know.
times.
I'm just trying to add to the joke. I don't know.
Yeah. And anyway, Gundam.
Yeah, Gundam it's a cool thing.
I'm trying to think. There's like a lot of like really good specific bits of just like seeing. It's a really good tactical show of just like, yes, give me tactics.
Yeah, like a lot of like schemes and plans and like, how do we get this thing to do it? Like, we gotta repair this thing, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah. I really like how long it takes some of the Gundams to do things. Like that whole episode where there's a couple of Zeon Gundams in the village, and it's like a very slow process of sneaking around them and like trying to get into the right position to do attacks, and then just like at some point one guy fucks up and it becomes this huge mess.
Actually, that reminds me, like, while I prefer my super robots more super, like, I do like the way they depict movement in this show. Very, like, every step has a purpose, and if you fail that purpose, you're gonna get nuked.
Yeah, the Gundams are still, like, a crazy high-concept thing that is, like, possible, but still pretty far off in the real world. But the way they're portrayed, at least in this show, is like so very much like these aren't just like big military equipment. These aren't just tanks. These are like super tanks that are a huge pain in the ass to move around, but they're so effective when you get them into position that it's worth it.
Yeah.
I do like how, again, back on the tactics idea, how they show like a unit of Gundam would work, of like multiple Gundams and then a communications truck to help guide everything. Because isn't that like a big thing? Is like Minarsky particles block radio signals?
Yeah. That's why like some things, like some guns have like scopes and stuff like that, or weird like scopes that don't line up with like the actual eyes, because there's like, and one of my favorite parts of like this series is whenever the main character's ground Gundam grabs the beam saber, you see that connection within the hand where it pulls the power, and like they've talked about like these weird little like details in so many other shows, so it's just like,
It's just showing them.
Yeah, I'm just like, hey, I already know that, and it's just like, hey, by the way, this. I don't know. It's like their attention to detail is always like just fucking insane.
But like a little moment I really love is I forget what episode it's in, but there's a bit where there's a big Gundam battle going on, and one character asks for another character's support, and he's like, "I'm sorry, sir, my leg's non-operational. It's fucked up." And he's like, "Is it bad? Are you bleeding? Do you need patched up?" And he's like, "No, my Gundam's leg." And he goes, "Oh, right."
But it also just shows like where his mindset as a character is humanistically, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Only the yellowfin mechs are Gundams. Everything else is just a mobile suit.
Oh.
So Zaku's are just mobile suit Zaku.
Yeah, Zaku's are mobile suits. The only time you ever see like a Gundam on that side is if it's stolen, like the 083 Nuke Gundam.
Yeah. Did Char ever steal a Gundam, or did he only ever use Zaku's and Goofs?
I think he's used almost every single Xeon mobile suit, because he had a Zagok, he had a Zaku 2, technically he had a Zaku 1. He had a Goof, he had, I forget what the other one. We see him in like the episode where the kids are escaping. The guys with like the dual bladed melee weapons, like the dual bladed sabers and the weird shields.
That was him?
No, but he's had one of those suits as well. And then he kind of like, after like in Char's counter attack and like Double Zeta, he started getting like his own specialized suits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like Char is one of those things that like I haven't like had a ton of time with him, so I don't really have a read on him myself, but like he's so ubiquitous within Gundam as a franchise and anime as a medium that like I feel like everybody who's into anime on some level kind of knows who Char is. So I'm always like, okay, like how does this relate to that guy? Like he's almost like the Buster, I'm sorry. He's almost like the Tommy Oliver of Gundam.
I don't know. I need to like Char is like one of the most marketable Gundam characters outside of the titular Gundam.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is the second most important character in like the 1 year war.
Yeah, I mean he did promote McDonald's. Yeah, I think that's. I think we've exhausted all our thoughts.
No, we haven't.
Okay,
That's hours talk.
We can get into like more specific character discussion. I mean, like I don't know, how did everybody feel about Mikkel? Was he annoying, or was he a good old boy?
Good old boy.
Good guy, and it kind of it made me sad when we got into the epilogue and he's an alcoholic, and it's just like, oh no, my dude.
And his girl got married to another guy and just sent him a picture like, fuck off, you're never getting this. And
punished
like,
arc.
That was, see, like, I was expecting there to be like a scene in the last episode all the way through where it's like he finally gets to go home and you get to see her for 2 seconds, and it's like, oh, they're gonna get a happy ending, but maybe Shiro doesn't. And so the fact that they, I guess, subverted that with the final episode flashing forward and being like, yeah, it didn't work out, that actually got a good chuckle out of me. I was like, yes, that's good. That's fun. That's more realistic.
And I like how it like he was able to be discharged, but like none of the others were, so they're still in the army and they can't go on the quest that you know that they would all want to do and try to find their buddy.
Mm-hmm. I do like the transformation that oh gosh, what's her name? Kiki goes through over the course of the story, where she starts off as very much like the sort of archetypical object of admiration, perfect native girl, and just very quickly goes like, no, she's a bit more of a normal kid. No, she's a bit more of like a soldier leader. Oh god, she's traumatized as fuck. And then the next time you see her, she's like a full grown like person who's almost more competent than a lot of the other characters in the story.
Yeah. And like there's just a lot of fun little elements with a lot of the stuff of like her name was Caroline, right?
Karen.
Karen was a great character.
Yeah.
Of just like tough, no nonsense woman, but it's never portrayed of like the shitty way, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's like it's interesting. Like I would, she's the kind of character where I would almost expect, like in American media, a plot twist of like, oh, now that her husband's dead, she's become a lesbian because we don't understand how representation works. But she always like sticks to very much like, no, my husband's dead, he was my soulmate, it sucks, I miss him, but I'm still gonna get my job done.
But there's also hints that like maybe her life can move on, because it's not like there's ever a moment where Edmund's come-ons are like peevy or skeevy or wrong. It's just more of like, hey, I'm waiting. I'm here for you, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And do I think they get together? I don't know, but like it's nice to it's a way to show like maybe people can move on, maybe things that happen.
Yeah. You mean Elidor, right?
Yeah, I don't remember why I fucking said Edmund.
I don't either. I just looked at the characters page on Wikipedia here to be like, who was Edmund? And then I was like, oh, closest thing is Elidor, musician man.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about main character guy quite a bit, and we touched on her brother, but we haven't really talked about Aina a whole lot. How does everybody feel about Aina?
She's solid.
Yeah, she's a good character. She's very much that kind of just showing how an average maybe person may view the conflict, and then once they see the actual conflict going down, it's like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going on. What's happening?
I also like her like relationship with Shiro is basically just the bad bitch I pulled by being autistic.
I was thinking is just more like classical, like pretty girl who happens to be good despite growing up in the bad guy faction. Like that's a very classic archetype in even Japanese media.
Yeah, I mean, like we get a similar like point with Char and his sister, who's like a Fed agent or a Fed like soldier and one of the main characters on Amuro's side, and it's kind of like a similar vibe where like they don't want your brother to like be horrible, but like this is also kind of like the first like, or not necessarily maybe like the first, but a more interesting twist on it because it's like a mad scientist character. We get beats like that in Gundam every now and then, but I like how it's done here and how he just kind of says like fuck it to the whole Xeon thing.
Yeah,
because that kind of seems like how a lot of like splintered like soldiers and like officers like vibe in the Xeon world, is they're always trying to like pine for their own shit.
Yeah, I don't have a super lot to say about him. Like, he didn't feel like, I don't want to say one note, but he felt very like just, yeah, I kind of get who this character is.
Yeah, I mean, he's just doing his thing, and
he is bad guy man who made
it's
a cool bad guy thing.
It's like the way it wants to tell the story versus how like the bearing he has in the story.
Yeah, he's more there as like, he's there as a MacGuffin. He's not there as a plot element. He's there to kind of be like the ticking time, the time bomb for what's going to be happening if they don't pick up the pace and do stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gundam cool.
Gundam
I like
cool.
all the sound effects. They got maybe as many sound effects as like Star Wars tends to.
Yeah, there's definitely some recognizable effects in here. Again, a lot of like classic stuff you don't hear used a lot anymore, but because it's in so much like older media, watching this did feel like fairly cozy. Like, oh, even though this is something I haven't seen before, this is a franchise I don't know a whole lot about. It's pretty comfy.
Yeah, it's very not classical. Classical, best word. I think we already used that word. Dang it.
We can use words multiple times.
Hooray!
They're not finite. Like, I don't know what I was about to say. Oh, I know what I was about to say. Like, while I was watching, I was like, I couldn't place where it was in the 1 year war, and then the end happened. It's like, oh, okay, near the end. So it was like, from what I remember of the 70s anime,
It's a like, that's what it is. And that's how you could tell, by the way. 0080.
Yeah.
Or 8th MS team. Usually 8th MS team just kind of doesn't follow it, but a lot of them do have like the numbers on it.
Yeah, because Amuro's Gundam is 79, right?
No, I mean like usually it has like it'll tell you like the universal century, like after century or before colony or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
In the same vein as like it is the year 2005, like in the Transformers movie.
Yeah, I love that voice actor, man.
Yeah, that was very fun. That was just one of the most funny lines in film. It is.
I'll never forget watching that movie for the first time in the year 2004.
Oh, and I was like, oh, that's next year.
Yeah.
So, favorite suit?
Probably the blue one.
The goof.
Goof. Yeah.
I like the blue, like, final boss, Zeon.
Yeah, that's the goof.
Yeah, the goof.
I'm still very partial to Zaku's, but the goof in this was cool. The ground Gundams were pretty neat. I don't know. There's not like a suit in this I like actually dislike. Even the main one that has like hints of the classic Gundam colors and the head crest, like it was pulled back enough that it still really worked for me and didn't look like as, I don't know, flamboyant as I come to expect a Gundam to be, and thusly just worked a lot more for me. I don't know, it's weird. I'm into shit like Sentai and Transformers, but when it comes to Gundam, I'm like, nah, I don't want primary colors on that shit. I want that to be a little dingy, a little more realistic. I guess it's because that's like Transformers and Super Sentai. It is very much Super Robot, whereas this is, of course, this is the thing that defines what real robot is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Minarsky Particles kind of like put a lot of that in a fucking blender.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying like Minarsky Particles is kind of like the anything can happen kind of thing. That and new types.
Yeah. I always forget about new types until somebody name drops that shit, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, Gundam did mutants.
Well, I mean, we have some new types in this series.
Yeah.
That's usually how, like, because they always say like the Gundam picks, it's like whatever too, but they don't really get into that part of that in here. The Gundam's just most definitely like the ground types and the easy. Yeah, they're just machines more than anything.
Though it is interesting just to see how wrecked they get at the end. Because, like, through the missions, they're just beaten down till the end. One of them has a wrong head.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even in the intro, you're given like a good indication that is going to be a regular thing. There's like a shot in the opening of like a fucked up Gundam being pulled out of a big sandy desert dune.
Yep.
It's again, it's nice to see just kind of like the people on the ground doing the stuff, you know.
It's I guess grungy would be a good way to describe it as well. It feels very much like, you know, it almost has that kind of original trilogy Star Wars aesthetic of this is a lived-in world and everything has like this dirty kind of wash over top of it.
Yeah, like this is definitely an anime that could have only existed in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. 90s and 80s. I hate to say the old Taku thing, but 90s and 80s anime really do just hit different.
I think honestly
this guy
they do, and it's mostly I think just because of like the paper, the fact that the backgrounds had a texture and they had to deal with that, and the paint they used has a texture, and that contrasts on stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not like saying like, oh, one's better than the other. It's just more of like, yeah, it's just that happens.
Yeah, this is more to my taste. Stuff like this is more to my taste in animation than a lot of modern anime I see get popular. But I'm not gonna say like that stuff is outright bad or it doesn't deserve to exist. You know, go out there and enjoy your Witch from Mercury's or your Chainsaw Mans or your Dress Up Darlings or your Spy Families. That's all good and fine. It's just like, well, it looks neat. It doesn't look neat enough for me to jump in. Whereas this is like, I can imagine even if Cody hadn't made us watch this, eventually this would have crossed my radar and I'd have been like, let's give this a look.
Maybe. I mean, even like with Witch from Mercury, it's still vastly different. Like, because that's also not in the Universal Century, which, like, I don't care about that kind of thing. I mean, I love watching everything that happens in the Universal Century, which is their mainline canon. But it doesn't bug me too much.
What was the latest thing in the Universal Century that's released?
I believe that would be Hathaway's Flash.
Okay.
When was
which
that?
is also pretty cool. That was I don't know, last year,
Recent, like,
maybe.
okay, yeah.
All right, so yeah, I guess that's a podcast.
Guess that is
We all liked this. This was good. If you haven't seen it for some reason and you listen to this whole thing, go check it out. It's on Hulu, both the dub and the sub. So if you have access to Hulu or if you have an eye patch, go seek it out. It's only 12 episodes and it's a pretty decent little self-contained story that I don't think requires a whole heck of a lot about Gundam beforehand.
Yeah, I agree. It is a very good show. That is about war. If you like war stories, go watch it.
I mean, Cody, you were right. This is like a great entry point to just get into Gundam because I'm just going like, fuck, I want to watch War in the Pocket. I know it's probably
people.
But I just want to watch
War in the Pocket is the one people have always told me is really good. So I might do that with you. But
it's a good beginner of like the philosophy.
Like last month.
It's a good beginner of like the philosophy of Gundam is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, and in any case, like, the great first pick of the year for you, Cody.
Wow.
You did it. We love you.
Yeah.
You truly are the secret ingredient, the special sauce of modular media.
We couldn't have done it without you.
Legit.
But that does take us on to the topic of what we're going to be doing next month. And, oh man, we've come full circle since starting Analytical Fanboys 2.0. Buster, it's your turn to pick again. What are we going to be talking about in May?
All right, so I've been thinking. I've been I've had a short list, and I didn't even use the short list because I'm like, no, none of these. I'm like, we have to do right now. And this one we don't have to do right now, but I feel like I want to do it, for lack of a better word, because something about it just like I want to revisit it right now and like get your guys. I think Boingo has read this. It is a webcomic. It is. Basically it's like, okay, we already did funny haha internet show with lore, and we already did manga on my end, and also Vac also picked the comic. Let's combine the two into the parody shonen-esque series, Scoob and Shag.
Oh, Scoob and Shag.
Yeah, we're going to do the first 90 chapters, because that's part one. Although I haven't linked a dub if you do choose. It's an okay dub. It's not the best, but it works. So, yeah, B-Mask talked about it. So you might, that's why I'm like, oh, and I think
I literally only know about Scoob and Shag because of B-Mask. I've never heard anyone else talk about it.
Yeah, and I read it in like a day once, and I loved it a lot. So I'm like, let's go back to it. Let's see, because it's technically it's much like Chainsaw Man. It's in its second story arc, although it's on hiatus. Not sure if it'll ever come back. But yeah, part one is done, so we're just gonna, and like the chapters are very short, so it's very easily digestible. So I've both linked the dub and the webtoon link, so anyone can read it for free.
Yeah, and we'll have links to that, and I'll probably link the Hulu link for 8th MS Team down in the video description if anybody hasn't checked it out yet. Yeah, that's another installment of Analytical Fanboys done and dusted, boys. So before we get out of here, why don't we tell the good people where they can check out our content, starting with Buster.
Oh, I picked the thing we're going to talk about next month, but you can hear me talk about things all month long, every week on the Buster Corp YouTube channel. I do videos on Ultraman, I do OKKO podcast, I do other tokusatsu videos, I do animation videos, I do comic videos. We do a lot of videos over at my channel. They're pretty short, but I think they're well made. Also at Twitter at BusterBoy3 if you wanted to see stream of consciousness thoughts, and yeah.
Right, Snowcone, where are you located on the internet?
You could best find me on your old instant gratification under never_robot.
Oh my god, instant gratification?
Yeah, where can they instant gramify you, Boingo?
Hi, you can find me on a variety of places on the internet. You can find me on YouTube at boingowriter.youtube, whatever, fuck it. I post a lot of shit. Frickin' weekly reviews of Kamen Rider Geeks, video essays, video editorials. I post all that kind of stuff there. You can also follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at boingo_writer. You can also follow me on Tumblr for the variety of things I post there. And I stream on Twitch Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays.
Nice. I am the Vacuuminator. I make weekly videos, opinionated vlog, rant review type things, retrospectives as well. You can find all that over on YouTube at the Vacuuminator. I'm also on Twitter at the Vacuuminator. I have a TikTok where I post clips of my videos. That's at the_Vacuuminator. I also have a Tumblr where I just kind of generally do Tumblr stuff. That's thevacuuminator.tumblr.com. And I have an Instagram where I post daily action figure photography, the_Vacuuminator. But that's all my stuff. Hey, Modular, the channel you're listening to this podcast on, if you enjoyed it, please give us a like, comment down below with some of your thoughts on the 8th MS team or just our discussion of it. Subscribe, ring the bell in order to enable notifications to get every podcast we do delivered right to your inbox. Also follow us on social media for regular updates. We're on Twitter at the Modular Media, on Tumblr at Modular Media, and on Reddit r/Modular Media. But that's going to do it for this episode of Analytical Fanboys. We hope you've enjoyed this discussion of Gundam, the 8th MS team, and we hope you will join us back here next month to discuss Scoob and Shag. Until then.